Right, welcome to our virtual program. So before we begin, I need to let you know about some ground rules that we've set up for today's program. You will be muted during this class, and we have your video blocked. You will only see the instructor's screen. At the top of your screen, you can find an exit full screen option if you need to get to other things on your computer. You're welcome to ask questions or request that the instructor repeat information. At any time during today's program, you should see an icon at the bottom of your screen that says Chat. If you click on that, you can open the chat window. Chat is set to be seen by library staff only. If you prefer, you may also use the Q&A feature located at the bottom of your screen to ask questions. Please note that any inappropriate questions or comments will cause your immediate removal from today's class. For all questions, we may answer you directly in the chat or Q&A box, hold a question until a break or at the end of the class, or ask the question at any time if it is pressing. On our website, we do have additional resources such as databases that supplement today's program. We will be using the instructor's screen to demonstrate and may share additional resources in chat as well. A recording of today's program will be available in a few days. So if you would like to watch today's program and then practice with the recording later, that is an option. All right, well, with the ground rules out of the way, let's get started. Welcome, everyone. My name is Faith, and I'm joined today by Heather, our chat moderator. And we will be presenting a program today on junk journaling. So you may or may not have heard of junk journaling before, but on our agenda today, we'll be answering questions like, what is junk journaling? What are some elements of it? Types of junk journals, some handy tips. And at the end, we're going to have an activity and a few demonstrations how to make an easy junk journal and how you might decorate one. What is junk journaling? So the origin and concept, it's really a relatively newer term. However, the concept and idea has been around for some time. Historically, commonplace books were a common way of compiling different kinds of information in a journal. This was a book where a person could gather and keep letters, recipes, quotes, proverbs, different ideas in a singular book. Scrapbooking, a crafted book compiled of memories, often with photographs and decorative paper, really increased in popularity in the 1800s. Today, you can buy beautiful scrapbooks and printed pages and materials to decorate them from craft stores. The great and wonderful aspects of a junk journal is the ability to use anything and everything, or junk, to fill these pages. It's also a fun way to express yourself artistically in a stress-free, easy, and free-form style. In fact, if you scrapbook, you can use the scraps from that to fill your junk journal. But it's not just art supplies that can be used. Anything can be used in a junk journal. Some elements of the junk journal. So different types of material that could be used in a junk journal are mixed media, ephemera, memorabilia, leftovers from scrapbooking, stickers, stamps, and more. These are just some everyday materials you can use typically found in craft supplies. However, you can find everyday materials all around you to use. Don't be afraid to think outside the box. What random materials do you have that could be utilized? Do you have any torn wrapping paper after a birthday party? Do you have any old birthday cards? What about thrifted books or papers? A crumpled up menu from the mail, a magazine that you've read a dozen times, a random ticket stub from a movie. All these items could find a new life in your junk journal. For the journal itself, there is no right or wrong type of journal to use. You can use a store-bought plain journal, you could recycle an old book, or you could even make your own journal. There are many simple variations of homemade journals that can be made. There are sew journals that you use needle and thread to hold together, or no-sew journals that can be attached to glue, slots and tabs, or other means. You can use a junk journal with uniform pages, or a popular type of junk journaling is to actually have pages of different materials and sometimes even sizes. Trash to treasure. There are many awesome benefits of reusing and repurposing items for a junk journal. You can save money. If you ever do scrapbooking or any kind of crafting, you can find that it can be pretty expensive to shop at craft stores to buy all these supplies. Getting rid of clutter. Perhaps you've been holding on to memorabilia or different items that you just have laying around. You could find a way to put them all together in a junk journal. Conserving resources and less waste. Can find ways to reuse things that maybe you would have originally just thrown away. And changing your perception of value. Remember the adage, one man's trash is another man's treasure. You can find value in unexpected things, and this can be fun and even really surprising. Ideas for using your junk journal. So there are many benefits to creating a junk journal, whether you make it just for aesthetics, artistic expression, or just a fun way to relax. You can utilize your junk journal in so many original ways. Some different ideas would be a keepsake journal. Perhaps you have some precious photos or memories, letters that you would like to put in a journal and keep. Art journaling. You don't have to be an artist to art journal, and this is a fun way to express yourself. And if you use something like a junk journal, can be a great way to showcase your art. A commonplace book, like I spoke about earlier, a gratitude or reflection journal, free writing journals. A fun one might be a travel, nature, or dream journal. Or just use your imagination. The sky's the limit. Tips for junk journaling. If you hear a voice within you say, you cannot paint, then by all means paint, and that voice will be silenced. Vincent van Gogh. So when you're making a junk journal, remember that it's your art. Feel free to make it the way you like it. Aristotle said, the aim of art is to represent not the outward appearance of things, but their inward significance. Make mistakes and enjoy the process. Junk journaling is more about experiencing creativity and the process than a perfect product. Choosing thin or less bulky items. This is preference, but just a reminder that while you can put anything you want in your junk journal, if you do put a lot of very large or bulky items, it will be much harder to close your journal. And if you are wanting a journal that can nicely close, you'll want to stick with items that are a little bit more thin. But you can also use ribbons or rubber bands or different things to help tie and keep your journal closed if you're wanting to keep it closed and you do have thicker items inside the journal. The negative space. Following specific rules for a junk journal is not required at all. But if you are wanting to use the journal later for something else, for example, an art journal or a free writing journal, you might want to try leaving some negative space to allow for yourself to be able to write or draw. Themes and focal points or contrast. As you play with your style, themes, and what you wish to create with your journal, using focal points and contrast can be a great way to direct people's attention when they look at one of your spreads. You can try placing a picture in the center of a page or place it closer to a corner of a page. You can try using contrasting color or an image that's black and white to just draw some contrast against different pictures. And then if you do want to use your journal for art journaling, you might want to cover the pages in gesso so that your paints will not bleed through the papers unless you're using specific paper that can handle watercolor paint. And then you can learn more. Check out these resources at the library. You can just search in our catalog for journaling, but some good books, Creative Wanderlust. This one's actually a little more focused on art journaling, but it has really great inspiration in there. And then we have some other books, Journaling Your Way or Making Handmade Books. And these can be really interesting and inspiring if you want to make a handmade junk journal. So we are going to be doing a few demonstrations. The first demonstration is going to be making a very simple junk journal with a large needle and thread. So it's a sew journal. So some supplies that you could use if you're wanting to make a journal along with us. And these are just typical items you can find around your house. You can find some various papers. These can be trimmed or torn to similar size. It's up to you. They don't have to be the same size if you don't want them to be. You can use pens, markers, or pencils if you want to write or draw inside your junk journal. A ruler. This is helpful if you are wanting to make your own junk journal. You'll need a little bit of measuring. Some scissors to cut some of the pictures or paper down, glue, a large needle and thread. And then to decorate your journal, if you have any on-hand materials, that could be tissue paper, magazines, maybe some old ribbons, sequins, buttons, greeting cards, all of these different items that you might have in your home can be used for your junk journal. So now we're going to just take a few moments to set up our next demonstration. So over here we have some papers that we're going to use to make a very simple junk journal. So right now I have some construction paper, just some normal paper. I even have a paper bag. And then this is a thicker paper and it's much smaller, more of a cardstock. And as you can see, I have already put in 3 different holes so I can sew this journal together, and it's all the way through. I used a ruler to measure at least an inch. You want to make sure there's space from the edge, because if you do it too close to the edge, it's more likely to tear. So you want to make sure it's at least an inch inside, and then you want to do one right in the center. Now you can also just do it with 2, as you can see I did with the shorter papers right here. Now, it's up to you if you want a junk journal with all the same size papers or not. I really like the aesthetic look of having different types of papers and different sizes. But there are lots of options, and you can make it however you like best. So now we have our needle and thread, and this is just a little bit of a thicker thread. And we're gonna just put it through here. Now, it's up to you if you wanna start in the middle through this side or the outside. It's just going to tie, at, you can choose to tie it on the outside or the inside. Both are options that you can do. So we're just gonna pull this through here, the middle. And then I'm going to pull it through the side, the top here. And I'm actually gonna pull it through the middle again. Okay, and now I'm gonna pull it through the very last one here. And then we're gonna pull the rest of that string all the way through. And then we'll take the needle off. And then what you can do is just do a simple tie here, a little knot. And this is going to keep your junk journal together. And then you can always take scissors and cut off the extra string. You don't have to keep that if you don't want to. So you see here, we've just made a very simple junk journal, and the string will hold the papers in place, so we can take these little clips off I was using to hold the papers together so the holes would stay lined up when I threaded it. And now we have our junk journal and different types of papers here. That we can choose to decorate with whatever types of items or papers that we want to decorate it with. Did anyone have any questions about this?
So far, we do not have any questions.
All right, thank you. Well, now we're going to move on to our next demonstration, where I'm going to show you a few different types of junk journals and how you might want to decorate one. All right, now we're back with some different kinds of junk journals. So these are some junk journals I've already made ahead of time. This one right here is actually a slot and tab one, but I also used some glue to hold it together. This one has about the same size papers, but I went for a torn look. I like the aesthetic of the torn paper. I decorated it a little bit with some different papers from an old book and some buttons. And then this one is actually kind of set up to be a historical keepsake type of journal that shows information about librarians from the past. And I use different types of papers, as you can see here. In my junk journal, I do have a few different sized ones as well. This is a smaller one. We also have some old museum pictures as well. And then I do still have some empty spaces at the end that I could fill up with whatever I want to put in there. And then this journal, this is another simple type of journal. I just use glue to glue these together. And these papers are all the same size. And then this one is actually a slot and tab one. This one doesn't have any glue on it though, and I put this on the outside so I could tie it closed if I wanted to. We also have some sequins, leftover sequins that I used. I just put some glue there and some thread for the flowers. But this one with the slot and tab, you actually just cut one paper and then you cut right here and fold in the other paper and slide it in. This is a little bit more difficult if you have paper that's not easy to bend. And it can be a little more fragile, so you do have to be careful because it's a little bit easier to tear. And then finally, we have another junk journal that is a sew journal. As you can see, I just used some string here. This also has different size papers. Here I made a little slot here that I could hold different papers there. This one has a little bit of a 3D element. We used some different sequins and just little pieces of paper that might have been thrown away, but I was able to repurpose for the journal. So right here, we actually have a blank page, and we're just going to do a fun little demonstration of how you might decorate a junk journal. So I have a lot of different papers here. These I've saved from old magazines. Right here, we have a little place you might hold coins or something that I'm reusing here. I found a lot of papers on tea bags, and these actually have little sayings, so I thought that was fun and something we could use. So I'm gonna do some spread right here, and it's gonna be kind of a spring theme. So I'm gonna be using glue for this. Other options you could use are tape, but glue usually works pretty well. So you just glue the back of the paper, and I'm actually gonna start by putting it a little bit in the corner here, pressing that down on there. And then to add some interest, I'm gonna do a little bit of an overlap here. And I'm gonna put this flower kind of a little bit over this picture of the bird. Then you just glue it. And then you can just press this one down. And now I'm actually gonna use this one because I would like to be able to maybe put some stuff actually like right here and be able to hold some stuff in there. I think that's a really cute idea. If I wanted to have a little secret pocket. So I'm actually gonna overlap it right here. Just press down on that. And then for fun, I'm actually going to put this little rabbit in here. He's kind of peeking out. And then I think I'm going to put a couple of these little sayings. These were from tea bags. Just going to put a couple here to add some interest. So we'll put one right here. And we'll put this other one right here, a little bit opposite of it. So the fun thing about junk journaling is there is no right or wrong way. It's just however you want to put these papers in here. It's kind of fun just to kind of almost like doing a little bit of a collage and overlapping. And then you can just kind of create your inspiration as you go on. And this one, you don't have to have a theme. I like to have themes sometimes, and this is just kind of a spring theme. So we're actually going to add just a few flowers to the spring theme.
Faith, we do have a couple of questions that have come in.
Yes. What are those questions?
What could be the main objective of junk journaling? Is it for decluttering?
I would say the main element of junk journaling is artistic expression. But it can be a way to declutter if you have something, for instance, you have like a lot of photos that are just like lying around or different materials that you've been saving things and you want to put them all together. You could create a theme of something and put it all together in one place. So it can't be used for both. I would say the main goal is just artistic expression and fun.
I think you also mentioned something about even doing one while you're traveling from things that you had collected along the way.
Yes, that's just a great way to kind of keep those memories. Maybe you went and saw a movie on a trip, or you went to a museum, you have a ticket stub, or you have an old menu. Sometimes you come back with a lot of different things, little pieces of paper that typically you might throw it away. But if you put it all together in a junk journal, maybe with some pictures, it'd be a great way to kind of keep those memories and be able to look back and remember that fun experience you had when you were traveling.
Our next question, could you show how to make string and stack journal?
The string in the stack journal, was it this one specifically or this one?
Um, I am not sure. Let's see if we get a response on that.
For if you're wanting string, you just can get any type of string. I would choose something a little bit thicker, and then you can just sew it through. For a journal like this is a tab journal. Basically, you have these different tabs, and then I just glued the paper on to keep it in place.
Do you have a piece of paper on each side of those tabs?
I do
Yeah.
to keep it together, yes. So you actually see part of this tab right here. This is keep it from sliding off. I used glue, so I would glue it on there. And sometimes, like this one, I glued two papers on both sides so you couldn't actually see the tab there. So it makes it look more seamless. But sometimes the tab becomes a little exposed. You can actually see if you look hard enough, the tab is right here. But I just glued two papers over it so it's not visible. And I think we're going to add a little hummingbird right here because this looks kind of pretty. I think it'll go right here. Do we have any other questions on the chat?
No more questions at this moment.
Okay, and then I think we're actually gonna, on this side, so I'm actually just gonna put some glue on this one. You notice I folded it to try and give it a little bit of movement. Now, something that's like this one might need a little bit more than just this glue. This might work. If it needs more, what you can do is use like a liquid glue and then set something heavy on top of it and let it sit. You want to keep it open, the pages open, and just let it sit for a little while. But I do like it does stick out a little bit, but I do like the 3D element there. And I'm just gonna add a little bit of flowers underneath that the butterfly might be visiting. And then these are just from magazines, which it's a great place to find lots of pictures. If you have old magazines and you're not going to use them anymore, maybe you've already read them, want to throw them away, you can find pictures to use in your junk journal. And then we'll do one more here, this longer one. But magazine pictures typically they stick very well because they're a lot thinner. And this is what I mean by having like items that are thicker. It just having one item doesn't necessarily make it hard for this book to close, but if I continually add large items, it can become harder to close it. You could find a way to put something around it like I have right here, or a rubber band or ribbons. Could glue ribbons and then just tie them. Or you don't have to make it that it shuts if you don't want to either. That's also okay. I think I'm gonna just do one of these just to kind of bring this side and kind of connect it with this side real quick. And then I'm gonna do one more. Also, a nice thing about junk journaling, if you do end up putting something that you don't necessarily like you end up deciding that you want to change it a little bit, sometimes you can just put stuff over it. I've done that before where maybe I just didn't like the original paper I had under there and I might glue something over it without having to remove it. Here we see we have our spring spread. We kind of have it connecting with these little elements here, and of course the flowers. We have our little rabbit ready to come out, hummingbird, our butterfly that adds a 3D dimension to there. And I think I'm just gonna add one more little tea bag. This one is a different color. I want to add a little bit of contrast. Now, with how I did this spread, I didn't really leave much space for any kind of writing. If you were wanting to do free writing or even art journaling, you would need more space. So you would want to make sure that you kind of leave more space open for you, maybe like something like this, or maybe even something smaller where you can write more. It's okay if like the pictures are there breaking up your writing, that could make it more fun looking, but you just want to make sure that you actually have space to write if that's what you intend to use it for. And I also have a paper bag in this one. I like the elements of the paper bag. This one has a lot of different types of paper, different colored paper. The end, this is a slot I did where you can move the paper a little bit, just kind of create something interesting. And I think we're just gonna do one last flower right here. Oh, this one is actually a little envelope. Didn't notice that. But we're actually going to make it a little envelope because I think that's really cute. There we go. So I have a little tiny envelope with some layers there. Do we have any other questions?
So far, we do not have any other questions. Please feel free to add them to the chat or the Q&A if you have some last questions for Faith. I am adding a link to our website in the chat. This is the link to the calendar through our website. If you are interested in any of our other art programs, you can find them there. All of our programming calendars have gone digital now through the website, and you can sort and browse through programs by age group or the type of program you want, such as art program from today.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us for junk journaling.